Welcome to this explainer. We're diving into this incredibly fascinating paradox today, one that's basically been born out of our modern hustle culture. Think about this for a second. Have you ever wondered how it's possible to sleep a full 8 hours, completely uninterrupted, yet you still wake up feeling just absolutely exhausted, like your brain never actually rested at all? It is a massive mystery, and it sits right at the intersection of sleep optimization, cognitive performance, and our everyday lifestyle habits. So, we're going to explore the cutting-edge neuroscience of sleep to unmask exactly what happens in our brains when we try to borrow tomorrow's energy today. Let's dive right into this. Now, you've probably heard someone say it, heck, maybe you are even that person. The high performer who confidently claims, oh, I can down a double espresso at 8 p.m. and sleep like a baby. We kind of wear our late-night caffeine tolerance like this biological badge of honor, right? We just assume that if we can close our eyes and drift off, well, the caffeine clearly isn't affecting us. But modern sleep science is completely dismantling this classic assumption. As we'll see, the ability to simply fall unconscious absolutely does not equal healthy, restorative sleep. Honestly, it just means you've successfully anesthetized yourself. In fact, when experts at Rocklaw Medical University were asked if falling asleep easily means you're immune to late-night caffeine, their response was blunt. They stated, absolutely not, and that is the most dangerous illusion of the substance. So the absolutely crucial takeaway right off the bat here is that your subjective ability to drop off to sleep has nothing, literally zero, to do with how your brain is actually resting. You might be completely unconscious to the world, but at a cellular level, your brain is fundamentally failing to recover. And this hidden failure, it's a massive root cause of why you might wake up anxious, foggy, or just lacking emotional resilience, despite logging a solid 8 hours. To really understand why this happens, we have to look to the future of health technology and move way past traditional sleep tracking. Your basic smartwatch or wearable mostly just measures superficial metrics, right? Things like total sleep duration or how many times you woke up in the middle of the night. But scientists are now utilizing something called quantitative electroencephalography, or quantitative EEG. This is a powerful neurophysiological method that records the brain's complex electrical activity. Instead of just asking if you are sleeping, quantitative EEG allows us to see exactly how your brain is sleeping. It exposes the subtle, deep biological quality of your rest that is completely invisible to standard observation. And what the data shows brilliantly illustrates this dangerous disconnect between subjective rest and objective recovery. It's like a biological optical illusion. You might experience what feels like perfect sleep. You fall asleep easily, you don't remember waking up, you think you feel fine. But objectively, the EEG data reveals a central nervous system that is trapped in a shallow, wakeful pattern. You might spend a full 8 hours in bed, but your brain is actively being robbed of the physical and cognitive repair it desperately needs to maintain peak performance. Okay, so to grasp exactly how this happens, let's do a quick deep dive into some foundational neuroscience. Throughout the day, your brain accumulates a molecule called adenosine. This is essentially a byproduct of your cells using energy. As those adenosine levels rise, the molecule binds to specific receptors in your brain, creating what scientists call sleep pressure. If you've ever felt that growing, undeniable, heavy feeling of tiredness at the end of the day, that's adenosine. It naturally and inevitably orchestrates your need for rest. It's the vital biological signal telling your wake-promoting centers to quiet down so it can initiate deep cellular repair. But here is where caffeine enters the picture, acting as a complete master of disguise. You see, caffeine doesn't actually give you energy. Actually, scratch that. It doesn't give you any real energy at all. Instead, it acts as a molecular imposter. Its physical structure is so remarkably similar to adenosine that it fits perfectly into those exact same brain receptors. So instead of that natural sleep signal building up pressure, caffeine blocks the signal entirely. The adenosine is still accumulating in the background, your brain is still completely exhausted, but the caffeine puts a blindfold on your nervous system so you simply can't feel it. But as we all know, that blindfold eventually comes off. Eventually, your liver metabolizes the caffeine, and when those receptors finally become available again, boom, all that adenosine that's been quietly piling up for hours suddenly floods the brain all at once. This right here is the physiological mechanism behind that classic 3 p.m. caffeine crash. It's not just a little drop in energy. It's a sudden, overwhelming wave of exhaustion that shatters your ability to do deep, focused work, leaving you desperately reaching for another cup of coffee just to survive the rest of the afternoon. And the damage extends deep into the night. When we look at the specific, targeted damage caffeine inflicts on our sleep architecture, it's pretty alarming. The most consistent finding in those quantitative EEG studies we mentioned earlier is that caffeine severely suppresses slow wave activity, also known as delta power. These slow waves are the fundamental biological engine of deep sleep that govern your physical regeneration, immune system repair, and memory consolidation. While it's killing these slow waves, caffeine simultaneously forces an increase in fast-frequency beta and sigma waves. This keeps your brain in a persistent state of electrical hyperarousal. REM sleep gets delayed by up to 2 hours. You lose over 11 minutes of deep N3 and N4 sleep. And over time, losing this deep sleep doesn't just make you tired, it actively accelerates biological aging and impairs your ability to consolidate memories. When we zoom out and look at the macro-level impact, the numbers are just striking. Systematically, caffeine consumption reduces your total sleep time by an average of 45 minutes and drops your overall sleep efficiency by around 7%. It also increases the time it takes you to actually fall asleep by about 9 to 16 minutes. This hidden toll means you are routinely accumulating a massive compounding sleep debt. This isn't just a nightly annoyance, you guys. It's a long-term health crisis that compromises your brain health, your metabolic function, and your emotional resilience, even if you think you're sleeping just fine. Now, you might be thinking, well, hey, I stopped drinking coffee in the afternoon, so I'm totally safe. Let's look at the actual metabolic timeline. Research highlights this incredible 8.8-hour rule. Because caffeine has an average half-life of 4 to 6 hours, it lingers in your system for a remarkably long time. If you plan to go to bed at 11 p.m., a caffeine dose consumed as early as 2:10 p.m. can still be actively degrading your deep sleep waves at midnight. So that generic advice of no coffee after 2 p.m. really only mathematically works if your biological bedtime aligns with 11 p.m. And that's assuming you have the genetics of a superhero, which brings us to a really fascinating point. This metabolic timeline introduces an even deeper mystery. If the average half-life is 4 to 6 hours, why does a single morning cup of coffee completely ruin sleep for certain people, while others seem practically immune? Like, we all know that person who can drink coffee at dinner, right? The answer is that there is no universal human response to this chemical. Your tolerance has absolutely nothing to do with willpower. It's heavily dictated by your unique genetic lottery. It all comes down to your pharmacokinetics. Your liver processes caffeine using an enzyme encoded by the CYP1A2 gene. If you carry the A/A variant, congratulations, you are a fast metabolizer. Your body can clear caffeine in just 3 to 4 hours, meaning an afternoon coffee is essentially gone by bedtime. But if you carry the C allele, you are a slow metabolizer. It can take 8 to 10 hours or sometimes even longer for your body to clear that exact same dose. For you, a 4 p.m. espresso is still actively circulating in your brain well past midnight. And the genetics go even deeper than just liver metabolism. There's another gene called ADORA2A, and it dictates your brain's central sensitivity to caffeine by regulating the exact adenosine receptors we discussed earlier. Individuals with the C/C genotype are biologically hardwired to be highly sensitive. If you give them caffeine, their EEG patterns mimic severe insomnia, often triggering heightened anxiety and a massive spike in cortisol. Crucially, this operates completely independently of your liver's clearance speed. You could be a fast metabolizer but have highly sensitive brain receptors. This means even a tiny amount of lingering caffeine could completely shatter your mental health and sleep architecture. Furthermore, your personal tolerance is not a static trait. It shifts dramatically as you move through life. Adolescents and young adults metabolize caffeine rapidly, but healthy aging slows this process down significantly. By age 60 or 70, your caffeine clearance rate can decrease by a staggering 30 to 50%. That afternoon coffee habit you established in your 20s, that could be the exact reason you're experiencing insomnia in your 50s. Additionally, things like pregnancy and certain medications like oral contraceptives can dramatically extend caffeine's half-life in the body, sometimes even tripling the clearance time. Because of all this wild individual variability, those generic guidelines like just stop at 2 p.m. are fundamentally flawed. To protect your brain health, you need your own data. This brings us to a really practical, evidence-based framework, the 2-week discovery protocol. First, you just establish a baseline by tracking your normal intake and using a wearable to monitor your sleep latency and your deep sleep duration. Don't change anything yet. Then, gradually adjust your caffeine cutoff time earlier in the day. By looking at the correlation data on your wearable between when you stop drinking caffeine and a resulting deep sleep percentages, you can literally biohack your way to the exact personalized cutoff time that protects your slow wave recovery. When professionals or high performers ignore this data and just use high doses of caffeine to push through the day, they fall into what experts call the biological credit trap. Caffeine operates by borrowing tomorrow's energy today, and it does so at the direct expense of your nighttime recovery. Sure, you mask your daytime exhaustion, but in doing so, you destroy the slow wave sleep you need to actually repair your brain. So what happens? you wake up even more fatigued, which forces an escalating dependency on artificial stimulants just to survive the next day, leading to progressively shallower sleep. It's a vicious cycle that profoundly impacts all your interconnected health systems. Poor sleep shatters your mental health, which destroys your deep work capacity and ultimately accelerates cognitive aging. So I want to leave you with one final provocative question to really reflect on today. Look closely at your daily habits, your afternoon coffee, and that morning fatigue. Are you actually fully rested, physically regenerated, and biologically restored? Or are you just surviving on borrowed energy? Understanding the neuropharmacology of sleep gives you the power to break this cycle. Respect your sleep pressure, discover your personal cutoff time, and start treating your deep sleep waves like the biological gold that they are. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.